So, if you are sitting at your desk right now, maybe 3 to 5 years into your career, you have probably hit a very specific wall.
Oh, yeah, the mid-career plateau.
Exactly. You know the one. I mean, you understand the product, you know the internal systems, and you are honestly probably doing the work of a manager already.
Right. But you are still carrying an analyst or, an associate title.
Yeah. And more importantly, you are getting paid like one, so you start researching MBAs. But the traditional advice you get is just brutal. It's basically, hey, quit your job, forego 2 full years of salary, watch your peers climb the corporate ladder while you sit in a library for 24 months.
Yeah, and then you just have to pray that the corporate world is willing to pay a premium to hire you back when it is all over.
Right. It is an enormous financial gamble for you to take.
Well, it is a profound structural problem in modern career trajectories, frankly. I mean, the opportunity cost of a 2-year hiatus when you are in your late 20s, it's staggering.
It really is.
You are not just paying tuition, right? You are burning 24 months of peak earning and compounding potential. That whole 2-year model was built for a completely different era of the corporate life cycle.
Yeah, and that actually brings us to the real mission for today's deep dive. We are taking a radically objective, completely data-driven look at an alternative. Specifically, we are looking at the SPJIMR Postgraduate Program in Management, the PGPM for the 2026 intake.
Okay? Yes. SPJIMR.
And we are cutting through all the glossy brochures and the promotional noise. To do this, we have 3 highly detailed primary sources on the table today. We've got the official batch outlook report, we have the uncompromising, and I mean uncompromising eligibility and admissions guide, and crucially, an officially audited placement report.
That last one is huge.
It is the holy grail. So our goal today is to dissect exactly what this 18-month program is, whether the return on investment actually justifies the intense admissions gauntlet, and if this is the right strategic move for your specific profile.
I think what stands out immediately when you look at the documentation is that SPJIMR is not trying to be everything to everyone.
No, not at all.
The PGPM is a highly concentrated mechanism. It targets a very narrow demographic, which is the mid-career professional. And it subjects them to a structure that is entirely distinct from a traditional 2-year MBA or, those standard 1-year executive sprints.
Right.
We really have to examine the architecture of this timeline first, because that 18-month duration, it's essentially the fulcrum of the entire value proposition here.
Well, wait, I want to push back on the terminology a bit here before we get too deep.
Sure.
You see people on forums all the time casually throwing around the term 1-year MBA to describe programs like this, basically grouping them all into one giant bucket. But SPJIMR explicitly structures this as an 18-month AICTE-approved program.
Yes, they do.
It seems like they are deliberately rejecting that compressed 12-month model. Why demand that extra half year from people who are, let's be honest, desperate to get back into the workforce?
That is a great question. Because a strict 12-month model often forces catastrophic compromises in pedagogy. I mean, think about it. If you try to cram core fundamentals, specialized electives, and practical application all into a single year,
It's just too much.
the cognitive load becomes completely unmanageable. You end up with a very superficial understanding of complex frameworks. So SPJIMR solves this by dividing the 18 months into 4 distinct, strategically sequenced phases.
Okay.
It begins with 2 months of online foundational coursework.
See, I find that 2-month online runway absolutely fascinating from a transition standpoint, because you don't just hand in your resignation on a Friday, pack your bags, and show up on a campus in Mumbai on Monday,
Well,
completely shell-shocked.
Exactly. It's a buffer.
You are essentially buffering your re-entry into academia while you are tying up all your loose ends at work.
And it serves a critical psychological and academic purpose, too. It levels the playing field for everyone. I mean, if you've been working in corporate finance for 5 years, your quantitative skills are going to be incredibly sharp.
Right, you can do models in your sleep.
Exactly. But your marketing theory might be virtually non-existent. And then for a software engineer, the reverse is often true regarding business fundamentals.
Right.
Those 2 online months ensure that when all 169 participants finally arrive on campus for the 12-month residential module, no one is slowing down the class by asking basic foundational questions.
So by the time you actually step onto the campus, the engine is already running hot.
Oh, very hot.
And that residential phase is where the pressure really spikes. So semester 1 is purely core fundamentals, right? Building the scaffolding.
Yes.
And then semester 2 shifts into the majors. You've got operations and supply chain, information management and analytics, sales and marketing, finance, or human resources. But I really want to scrutinize the final phase here.
The immersions.
Yeah. After those 12 months on campus, there is a 4-month tail end dedicated to social impact projects, startup projects, and an international immersion. Like the recent batch, for example, they went to INSEAD in France.
Right.
So I have to ask, what is the actual functional utility of this? I mean, is an international immersion just an expensive academic vacation at the end of the program?
Well, I can guarantee you, if it were just a vacation, it would not satisfy the requirements of their accreditation bodies. And this is actually where we need to discuss the Triple Crown.
Oh, yes. Let's get into that.
SPJIMR holds accreditations from EQUIAS, AACSB, and AMBA. Now, less than 1% of business schools globally hold all three of those.
That is a crazy statistic, less than 1%.
It really is. And this is not just some marketing gimmick you put on a brochure. It is an incredibly rigorous compliance standard. AACSB scrutinizes faculty credentials and curriculum design. AMBA specifically audits postgraduate management programs. And EQUIAS looks really heavily at internationalization and corporate connectivity.
Okay, so those accrediting bodies are basically acting as independent auditors for the curriculum itself. So if an employer in, say, Singapore or London sees that Triple Crown on your resume, they don't have to guess if the curriculum you went through was rigorous. The standardization does the talking for you.
Precisely. And that final 4-month phase we were talking about, the immersions and the impact projects, that is where the theoretical knowledge from the residential phase gets stress tested in uncontrolled, real-world environments.
Ah, okay.
You aren't just sitting there reading a case study about European market entry. You are literally at INSEAD in France, engaging with the realities of that market. For a professional who already have prior work experience, this phase acts as a vital integration period. You are testing out your new executive toolkit before you officially step into your post-MBA role.
It is essentially a soft launch for your new career trajectory.
That's a perfect way to put it.
But, having the best curriculum in the world, backed by the Triple Crown, and by the way, a level 5 positive impact rating for sustainability, which they also have. All of that is basically meaningless if the classroom dynamics are weak. I mean, the entire value of a case study-driven MBA relies heavily on the people sitting in the room with you.
Completely.
If no one has the context to debate the material, the professor is just lecturing at a brick wall. So we really need to interrogate the demographics of this 2025-2026 batch outlook. Who is actually gaining entry into this 18-month pressure cooker?
So the first data point to consider here is the scale. The total participant count is 169.
That is tiny.
It is an intimate, highly curated cohort. Think about it. In a massive program with 800 students, you can easily hide in the back row.
Yeah, you can coast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in a class of 169, you are continuously exposed. Now, the average age is 27, and the gender breakdown is 64% male to 36% female. But the defining metric, the absolute core of this program's identity, is the work experience.
Sure.
The average tenure of incoming students is 4.8 years.
Okay, we really have to stop and think about the implications of that number. 4.8 years. Because the conversations happening in that room are going to be fundamentally different from a traditional MBA cohort filled with 22-year-olds who just went straight from undergrad to business school.
Night and day.
I mean, a 22-year-old might be absolutely brilliant at building a complex financial model on Excel. But a 27-year-old with nearly 5 years of experience, they have actually had to present a financial model to a hostile board of directors, watch it get torn apart, and figure out how to salvage the project budget on the fly. They are bringing actual operational scars into the academic environment.
You are identifying the exact shift from theoretical abstraction to applied pragmatism. When a professor introduces a module on, let's say, change management or organizational restructuring, a student with 5 years of experience doesn't just sit there and take notes.
Right, they've lived it.
They relate it to a merger they personally survived or a department layoff they witnessed firsthand. They challenge the academic theory with ground-level corporate reality.
And the data shows this experience isn't uniformly distributed either. 59% of the batch falls into the 3 to 5 year experience bracket. Another 32% have 5 to 7 years. And then there is this Fascinating. 9% who have 7 or more years of experience.
Yeah, the veterans.
Right. I imagine those veterans, the ones pushing toward a decade in the workforce, might feel a bit out of place in a student setting. Are they struggling to relate, or are they playing a different role in the cohort?
I'd say that 9% cohort is essential to the pedagogical architecture.
Hmm.
They act as the gravitational center for group work and case competitions.
How so?
Well, someone with 8 years of experience has likely managed direct reports. They have hired people and they have fired people. They possess a level of emotional intelligence and stakeholder management that, frankly, only comes from sustained exposure to corporate politics.
That makes sense.
SPJIMR actively wants that maturity in the room to temper the raw ambition of the younger candidates. It creates this incredibly robust mentorship dynamic internal to the batch itself.
Okay, let's look at where all this experience is actually coming from. The educational background is heavily skewed. 70% hold a BE or BTech degree.
Yes.
And when we look at their pre-MPA industries, technology dominates at 32%, consulting follows at 14%, manufacturing and engineering at 13%, and BFSI banking, financial services, and insurance at 8%. The rest are kind of scattered across automotive, e-commerce, healthcare, retail, and real estate.
Right.
But that 70% engineering figure is massive. Why are so many engineers flocking to this specific general management program?
It's really a systemic feature of the Indian labor market. India produces a massive volume of highly skilled technical talent. These engineers enter the workforce that spend 4 or 5 years optimizing code, maybe managing supply chains, executing technical consulting deliverables.
Doing the hard technical work.
Exactly. But inevitably, they hit a promotion ceiling. Because to move from a senior developer or a technical lead into a director or a VP role, pure coding prowess is no longer sufficient. You must understand the P&L. You must understand marketing strategy. And you really must understand human capital management.
Right.
The PGPM is basically the bridge to cross that chasm.
They want to stop taking orders from the MBAs and start defining the strategy themselves. I get it. But if 70% of the room thinks like an engineer, don't you risk creating a massive echo chamber? How does the program counter that highly analytical quantitative bias?
That is precisely why the 30% non-engineering background and the 36% female representation are so critical. Think about it. If a case study involves evaluating a new market entry for a consumer packaged goods company, you absolutely do not want an entire room of software engineers calculating supply chain efficiencies while completely missing the consumer psychology angle.
Right. You'd end up with a perfectly distributed product that no one wants to buy.
Exactly. You need the marketer from the retail sector or the operations manager from healthcare to disrupt that consensus. Diversity of background isn't just a nice to have, it's a pedagogical necessity to prevent intellectual blind spots.
All right, the theory is sound. The cohort is mature, they're experienced, and deliberately balanced to foster high-level debate. But, let's be real, no one is catching this tuition just for engaging intellectual debates.
Definitely not.
They are making a calculated financial investment. They're expecting a massive, quantifiable payout at the end, which forces us to look at the Gandhi and Lakhani audit of the 2024-2025 placement report. And I really want to linger on the word audited here because it is the entire foundation of our analysis today.
Oh, it cannot be overstated how rare and vital an audited placement report is in the current educational landscape.
It's almost unheard of.
It is. The higher education sector, particularly in the business school tier, suffers from a severe principal-agent problem when it comes to marketing. The institutions are highly incentivized to inflate their placement figures to attract the best candidates, knowing full well that applicants have almost no way to verify those claims.
We have all seen it, right? A school blasts a press release claiming a highest salary of 1 crore. But when you actually dig into the fine print, you realize it is a single international offer. They took the base salary, they added an unvested 10-year stock option plan, they factored in a one-time relocation bonus, converted it from dirhams or dollars using a ridiculously favorable exchange rate, and suddenly they are claiming a massive victory.
It's smoke and mirrors.
It is entirely misleading.
Which is exactly why SPJIMR subjects their data to the Indian Placement Reporting Standards, specifically IPRS version 2.2. Under this standard, the auditors from Gandhi and Lakhani do not just take the university's word for it, they demand primary documentation.
Like actual offer letters.
Yes. They verify the numbers against the actual legally binding offer letters provided by the recruiters themselves. Furthermore, The standard forces a strict categorization of the compensation. It must be broken down into basic, bonus, incentive, other benefits, and relocation.
So you can see exactly what is cash and what is fluff.
Precisely. If a company provides a complex package where the exact breakup is opaque, the auditors mandate that it be explicitly labeled as maximum earning potential. There is absolutely no room for creative accounting here.
It is the equivalent of a forensic financial investigation into the batch's outcomes. You are looking at the hard, unvarnished truth, so let's look at the actual numbers they found.
Let's do it.
The batch size was 165, with 149 seeking placement through the institute. 50 companies participated in the drive. And here is a data point that completely upends the narrative of a stagnant corporate job market. Out of those 50 companies, 23 were first-time recruiters.
Wow.
Almost half the companies showing up to campus had never recruited from this specific program before.
That is an extraordinary signal of market demand. When an established program relies entirely on legacy recruiters, it can sometimes indicate stagnation. The fact that the placement committee successfully onboarded 23 new corporate partners proves two things.
What are they?
First, the placement cell is operating with extreme agility and aggression. They aren't just sitting back. Second, it demonstrates a rapidly expanding corporate appetite for the specific profile SPJIMR is producing.
That mid-career professional.
Yes, the mid-career professional with accelerated general management training. Companies are actively seeking an alternative to the traditional 2-year MBA graduate.
Let's get to the compensation because that's what everyone wants to know. The median salary for the batch was 23.75 lakhs per annum. The average or mean salary was 24.42 LPA. And the highest domestic salary hit 50 LPA. Now, an average of 24.42 LPA for someone coming in with roughly 4 to 5 years of experience, that is a substantial pivot. But, as we know, averages can be incredibly deceptive. I mean, if 2 people land those 50 LPA outlier roles, they drag the mathematical mean upward, masking a situation where the majority of the class might actually be struggling at, say, 15 LPA.
Your skepticism is entirely warranted.
Yeah.
Which is why we must examine the density distribution of the offers rather than just the mean. And the audited report provides these exact percentages, which is great.
Oh, nice. Let's hear them.
18% of the batch received offers equal to or greater than 30 LPA.
Okay, that's nearly a fifth of the class.
36% secured offers of 25 LPA or more. And this is the most critical metric right here. A staggering 72% of the entire batch landed offers of 20 LPA or higher.
Wait, 72%?
Yes.
That figure is the silver bullet right there, because it proves that the program has an incredibly high floor. You do not need to be the valedictorian. You do not need to be in the top 5% of the cohort to secure a transformative outcome.
Exactly.
If you are a mid-career professional taking this massive risk, you are inherently concerned about downside protection. This data says that if you simply engage with the curriculum, leverage the resources, and land squarely in the middle of the pack, you are still walking away with a highly lucrative, career-altering offer.
It severely mitigates the risk profile of the investment. Additionally, for those looking beyond the domestic market, the transparency extends to international placements as well.
How so?
The report calculates total CTC internationally using a purchasing power parity PPP adjusted exchange rate. So the minimum international CTC was $14,193 and the maximum was $55,000, calculated at an implied PPP conversion rate of INR 1 equaling 0.011 USD.
Okay, so why use PPP instead of just a straight currency conversion?
Because by using PPP rather than a raw currency conversion, the report allows you to accurately gauge the true standard of living those salaries afforded in their respective global locations. It corrects for the cost of living differences.
That transparency is just so refreshing. But, you know, a broad median of 23.75 LPA still doesn't really answer the core question for the individual listening to this right now. If you are currently working in supply chain or IT or sales, you need to know exactly what function you will be performing and what sector you will be operating in post-graduation.
Absolutely.
And the functional breakdown reveals a massive trend. General management absolutely dominates here, capturing 52% of all accepted offers. Information technology is second at 19%, operations and supply chain at 16%, and marketing at 13%.
That is a huge percentage for general management.
Right. Why is over half the class moving into general management? Usually, MBA graduates get slotted right back into their functional silos.
This circles back perfectly to the 4.8 years of incoming experience. A corporation does not hire a 28-year-old with an SPJIMR PGPM to be a functional specialist.
Because they already have armies of specialists.
Exactly. They are hiring for integrative leadership.
Mm.
The modern corporate environment is plagued by departmental silos. Marketing doesn't talk to product, product doesn't talk to supply chain. A general manager is the bridge.
That makes total sense.
When you combine 5 years of pre-MBA execution experience with an 18-month strategic management overlay, you create a professional who can oversee an entire business unit. They understand the P&L, they understand the operational constraints, and they can align competing departmental interests toward a singular corporate objective.
They're hiring puzzle solvers, people who can see the whole board, not just one piece.
Precisely.
The salary breakdown by function is also really surprising to me. You might assume general management commands the highest average premium, given that wide scope of responsibility, but the data shows operations and supply chain actually secured the highest mean salary at 24.41 LPA, maxing out at 47.45 LPA.
Interesting.
Yeah. IT had a mean of 25.20 LPA. General management had a slightly lower mean of 24.09 LPA, although to be fair, it did hold that massive maximum offer of 50 LPA.
The parity across those functions really indicates that the value lies in the management tier, regardless of the specific departmental focus. But the truly disruptive insight emerges when we analyze the sector-wise classification.
Oh, this is my favorite part of the data.
As expected, consulting absorbed the highest volume of Talent 71 offers with a mean salary of 23.91 LPA. IT was second, taking 50 students at a mean of 25.05 LPA. But the anomaly, the sector that completely defies traditional MBA expectations, is manufacturing.
I found this data point absolutely riveting, because in the collective imagination of business school applicants, consulting, investment banking, and big tech are the undisputed kings of compensation. Manufacturing is often viewed as this legacy, dusty sector.
Right, the old guard.
Yet the audit proves that while manufacturing only hired 12 students, they offered the absolute highest sector mean salary at 27.31 LPA, and they tied for the maximum overall offer at 50 LPA. What on earth is driving this massive premium for talent in heavy industry?
We are witnessing the collision of legacy infrastructure and Industry 4.0. Heavy manufacturing, automotive, and industrial goods companies are undergoing violent digital transformations right now.
Like automating factories.
Way beyond that.
Yeah.
They're integrating IoT sensors onto the shop floor. They're utilizing predictive analytics for maintenance. And they are completely restructuring global supply chains using AI. But they have a severe talent gap. Their legacy leadership often lacks the digital fluency required for this transition, while pure tech consultants who come in lack the operational pragmatism to understand how a physical factory actually runs.
Okay, so if you are an engineer who has spent the last 4 years in a noisy, chaotic manufacturing plant dealing with actual physical logistics, and then you layer on the strategic frameworks from the PGPM, you essentially become a unicorn to these companies. You speak the gritty language of the shop floor, but you can confidently present the digital transformation strategy to the board.
Exactly. They're paying a 27.31 LPA premium because you are the exact profile required to drag their operations into the modern era.
The value proposition there is undeniable. Furthermore, the geographic distribution of these roles aligns perfectly with the sector strengths we just talked about. Bengaluru captured the majority with 31 accepted offers, heavily weighted by those IT and tech consulting roles.
Makes sense for Bangalore.
Mumbai followed closely with 29 offers, representing the financial and strategic core. Gurugram secured 13, and Pune took 11. And the recruiters writing these checks are institutional giants. We're talking Accenture, Bain & Company, IBM, Infosys, Axis Bank, PwC, Sanofi.
Those are heavy hitters.
Huge. And these organizations utilize highly sophisticated data-driven talent acquisition models. They do not repeatedly recruit from a campus unless they have longitudinal data proving the alumni perform and retain at high levels.
That's a great point. They track the ROI of their hires just as strictly as the students track the ROI of their tuition.
Okay, so the outcome is clear. The ROI is mathematically verified. The prospect of pivoting your career, boosting your salary into the mid-20s, and taking on an integrative leadership role at a global firm is deeply, deeply compelling. But the bridge between where you are sitting right now and that 50 LPA offer letter is guarded by one of the most stringent, unforgiving admissions processes in the country.
Unforgiving is the right word.
The SPJIMR PGPM is not merely looking for smart applicants. They are actively filtering out anyone who lacks executive function. Let's break down the non-negotiables of the application, because a single administrative error here results in immediate disqualification.
The process is absolutely designed as a stress test. Let's begin with the academic foundation. The baseline requirement appears straightforward on paper. A strict 50% minimum across your 10th grade, 12th grade, and bachelor's degree.
Which, for most people applying, isn't the issue.
Right. For the vast majority of mid-career professionals looking at this tier of education, achieving a 50% is not the barrier. The barrier is how that percentage is authenticated.
And this is where the trapdoor swings open. The eligibility guide is brutally explicit regarding institutions that award grades or a CGPA instead of a percentage. You cannot simply use a generic conversion formula you Googled, and you certainly cannot just guess.
No, you cannot.
If your transcript says you have a CGPA of 7.5, you must use the exact conversion factor mandated by your specific university.
And the critical caveat here is that if you are shortlisted for an interview, you must physically furnish the official conversion certificate issued by your university's administrative body. You cannot negotiate this on the day of the interview.
I really need to underline this for you. If you are listening to this and planning to apply, do not wait until you receive an interview invite to start dealing with your undergraduate university's bureaucracy.
Well, please don't.
We all know how painfully slow academic administration can be. Request that official conversion certificate today. It sounds like a trivial administrative detail, but it is precisely the kind of hurdle that eliminates brilliant candidates who simply lacked the foresight to organize their paperwork.
It basically tests your ability to anticipate roadblocks and manage bureaucratic compliance, which are core skills for any general manager.
Very true.
Moving to the defining criteria, the work experience. The mandate is a minimum of 3 years of full-time work experience. However, the exact phrasing is vital. It is 3 years as of December 1st, 2026.
That forward-looking date is an important strategic nuance, because if you are submitting your application during Phase I in, say, April 2026, you might only have 2.5 years of experience on your resume at that exact moment.
Right.
And that is perfectly acceptable, provided your current employment trajectory will carry you past that 3-year threshold by December 1st of that same year. But man, they are ruthless about what constitutes actual experience.
The exclusions are very clearly defined. Internships do not count. Training periods or project work that were part of your collegiate curriculum do not count. Any form of unpaid work is strictly excluded. The experience must be sole-time, post-graduation, and compensated.
There is a specific subcategory here that always generates a ton of confusion: chartered accountants. Many CAs look to transition into broader management roles. Does their mandatory articleship count towards the 3-year requirement?
The guide addresses this explicitly to remove any ambiguity. Full-time and paid articleship completed as part of the chartered accountancy curriculum will be considered as valid experience.
Okay, good.
However, and this is a big however, this is strictly contingent upon the successful completion of the CA qualification, backed by valid documentation. If the articleship was part-time, unpaid, or if the applicant failed to actually complete the CA certification, that time is totally voided.
It is a binary system. You either have the paper or you don't. What about founders? Like, if you spent the last 4 years building a startup that eventually failed, you certainly gain more management experience than someone sitting in a cubicle. But you don't have a traditional corporate HR department to issue you a nice, clean experience letter.
For entrepreneurial experience, the burden of proof is significantly higher. You cannot simply submit a self-authored letter claiming you were the CEO. You are required to submit legal and financial documentation proving the entity's existence and your operational role in it.
So tax returns, that sort of thing?
Yes. This includes incorporation certificates, official registration documents, and verifiable tax returns. It aligns perfectly with the ethos of that audited placement report we discussed. Every single claim must be backed by verifiable, auditable data.
Which brings us to the standardized testing. This is the area where the most tragic, unforced errors occur. Applying to this program is an exercise in following incredibly specific instigations. They accept the GMAT, the GMAT Focus Edition, and the CAT.
Right.
For the GMAT, scores must fall within the validity window of September 30, 2021 to September 30, 2026. For the CAT, they accept results from the 2023, 2024, and 2025 testing years. Getting a good score is the hard part, obviously, but submitting the score is where the trap lies.
This is a critical procedural mandate. If you are applying via the GMAT, you cannot just enter your score manually into the online application form and upload a PDF of your result sheet. That is entirely insufficient.
Let's do it.
You are strictly required to log into the official GMAT portal and authorize a direct transmission of your score to SPJIMR. And you must use the specific program code 6DQ-MJ12, or you can search for SK Jain Institute of Management and Research Postgraduate Program in Management within the portal.
I genuinely want you to write that down right now, code 6DQ-MJ12, because if you spend 4 months studying, score 720, pay your 3,000 rupee application fee, but you fail to route the score through the GMAC portal using that exact code, your application is structurally incomplete.
It will not be reviewed.
You will be disqualified not because you weren't smart enough, but because you failed to execute a basic administrative directive. It is a filter. If you cannot follow a multi-step routing instruction for your own application, how can a recruiter trust you to manage a complex supply chain?
It's a valid question. Now, for CTAT applicants, the process is less convoluted. You simply submit a copy of your official score report.
The entire application mechanism is basically an initial assessment of executive functioning. Once you have your documents aligned, you must navigate the timeline. SPJIMR divides the admission cycle into 3 distinct phases. Phase line spans from April 1st to May 31st, 2026. Phase 2 covers June 1st to July 31, and the final phase runs from August 1st to September 15th.
The strategic implications of these phases are very significant.
This is literally an exercise in game theory. If you wait until the final phase, you are competing for a rapidly diminishing pool of available seats against a massive influx of last-minute applicants. What is the optimal tactical approach here?
The optimal strategy is unequivocally Phase 1. The admissions committee operates on a rolling basis, evaluating applications and conducting interviews as they are submitted. If your profile is robust, your essays are compelling, and your test scores are finalized, applying in April or May places you in front of the committee when they have the maximum number of seats available.
Which means your odds are mathematically higher.
Exactly. It allows you to secure an early offer, potentially as early as August.
The psychological advantage of an August offer cannot be overstated. It gives you months to execute a graceful exit from your current employer, secure your financing, and mentally decompress before the academic pressure cooker begins. You avoid the desperate, sweaty anxiety of that late September scramble.
Absolutely.
And just to be absolutely clear on the final step, there is a non-refundable application processing fee of 3,000 rupees. If that payment doesn't clear, nothing else matters.
When you look at the totality of these requirements, the strict experience definitions, the conversion certificates, the portal codes, the rolling deadlines, it projects an image of an institution that is entirely uncompromising, highly bureaucratic, and deeply clinical in its assessment of human capital.
It really does sound like a cold, calculating sorting mechanism. But that perception is immediately shattered when you look at how they handle one specific segment of the applicant pool. Amidst all these rigid rules, SPJIMR has built a structural bypass that proves they actually understand the messy, human realities of career trajectories.
You're talking about the Restart Initiative.
I am talking about the Restart Initiative.
The Restart Initiative is, frankly, one of the most compelling structural features of the PGPM. It is a specialized admissions track explicitly engineered for returning women. The eligibility guidelines are highly specific. It targets female professionals who possess the requisite 3 years of full-time experience, but who are currently on a career break of 2 years or more, specifically for family care.
Wow.
The stated objective is to provide a mechanism to help them successfully relaunch their careers directly into the leadership tier.
We really have to acknowledge the macroeconomic reality of what they are addressing here. The caregiver penalty, or the maternal wall, is one of the most destructive forces in the corporate workforce.
It's a massive drain on talent.
You have highly competent professionals, exceptional project managers, brilliant analysts who step away to raise a child or care for an ailing parent. When they attempt to re-enter the workforce 3 years later, the corporate apparatus treats that gap on their resume as a liability.
Yes, they are heavily penalized.
Their previous experience is completely discounted, and they are forced to accept roles far below their competency level. It is a massive misallocation of talent.
It is a systemic market failure. Companies lose access to proven talent due to rigid, antiquated HR screening algorithms. By creating the Restart Initiative, SPJIMR is effectively creating an arbitrage opportunity.
How so?
They are identifying highly capable, resilient professionals who are currently undervalued by the broader market and providing them with the academic and strategic overlay required to re-enter at the general management level. They skip the mid-level grind.
They are building a bridge over the maternal wall, and it ties directly back to that level 5 positive impact rating we discussed way at the beginning. You don't earn a pioneering rating for societal impact just by, recycling paper on campus, or hosting a charity drive.
No, you don't.
You earn it by building institutional structures that actively rectify societal inequities. The Restart Initiative isn't marketing, it is operationalized empathy.
It also fundamentally alters the internal dynamic of the cohort. When we analyzed the demographics earlier, we noted the 36% female representation. When you infuse that demographic with women who have navigated the immense complexities and psychological endurance required for long-term family care, you elevate the maturity of the entire batch.
That's a really good point.
They bring a perspective on crisis management, prioritization, and resilience that you simply cannot learn from a textbook. It benefits the 26-year-old engineer sitting next to them just as much as it benefits the returning professional.
That is a profound point. Even if you are listening to this and you do not qualify for the Restart Initiative, maybe you are a single 28-year-old guy in IT with an unbroken career streak, this policy still impacts you deeply.
Absolutely.
Because it dictates the culture of the alumni network you are fighting so hard to join. You are entering an ecosystem that values holistic human experience, not just unbroken corporate obedience. A network that structurally supports its own members when life happens is an incredibly powerful asset to hold over a 40-year career.
And from a leadership development perspective, being trained in an environment that actively integrates and values returning caregivers influences your own future management style. You are far more likely to build inclusive, supportive policies for your own teams when you become a general manager.
So we have dismantled this program from every conceivable angle today. We started with the unique 18-month architecture designed to transition you smoothly while demanding deep residential focus. We decoded the highly curated cohort of 169 professionals, noting how the 4.8 years of average experience shifts the learning model from theoretical to fiercely practical. We investigated the Gandhi and Lakhani audited placement report, finding a verified mean of 24.42 LPA and an incredibly strong floor, where 72% of the batch clears the 20 LPA mark.
Which is huge.
We analyzed the strategic pivot into general management and the massive premium being paid by sectors undergoing digital transformation, like heavy manufacturing. And we mapped out the unforgiving, heavily filtered admissions gauntlet required to even secure a seat.
The data presents a very coherent, compelling narrative. The PGPM demands rigorous compliance and significant prior experience because it is engineered to produce a very specific output, an integrative leader capable of immediate impact. The high barrier to entry is directly correlated with the high probability of a lucrative exit.
But before we wrap this up, I want to leave you with a completely different way to calculate the value of this decision. We have talked extensively about the salary payouts, but the true calculus of the SPJIMR PGPM lies in the geometry of time. Think about the opportunity cost.
Yes.
A traditional MBA completely removes you from the labor market for a full 24 months. You are paying tuition, and your income goes to absolute zero.
The 18-month structure of the PGPM fundamentally alters that financial equation.
Yeah.
And crucially, those last 4 months are spent in immersions and impact projects, acting as a transitional runway back into the corporate sphere. You are effectively re-entering the market 6 months faster than your peers in a standard 2-year program.
Exactly. When you take the average post-MBA salary we just verified, roughly 24 lakhs per annum, that means you're earning approximately 12 lakhs in those 6 months that you would have otherwise spent sitting in a classroom during a 2-year program.
That changes the math entirely.
That is 12 lakhs of recovered opportunity cost. You aren't just paying for an elite Triple Crown education. You are systematically buying back 6 months of your peak earning potential. When you factor that recovered time into the lifetime ROI of this decision, the strategic advantage becomes undeniably clear.
It's a very compelling case for the accelerated model.
So if you are looking at your current trajectory and realizing the math isn't working for you anymore, it is time to execute. Gather your transcripts, initiate the bureaucratic warfare with your undergrad university to secure that grade conversion certificate right now. Ensure your GMAC portal is locked onto code 60Q-MJ12. And start positioning yourself for the Phase I application window. The path to the executive tier is fully documented. You just have to prove you have the precision to navigate it. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the consensus, keep optimizing your trajectory, and we will see you next time.